Before this story truly begins, before you decide whether what you're about to hear is right or wrong, before you judge the choices, before you think you understand love, I need to ask you something. Have you ever felt completely alone while sitting right next to the person you married? If stories about real emotions, painful silences, difficult decisions, and uncomfortable truths speak to you, then stop for a second and subscribe to this channel right now. Tell me with comments where you're watching this video from. This channel isn't about fairy tales or perfect endings. These stories are mirrors. They reflect parts of ourselves we don't always want to see. And make sure you watch until the very end, because what this story is actually about is not what the title makes you expect. The real meaning reveals itself slowly, just like loneliness does. Now, let me begin. My name is Lucy Anderson. At the time this story truly began, I was 33 years old, living in a small, slow-moving town in Michigan, the kind of town where nothing ever feels urgent. People wave at each other even if they don't know one another. The grocery store cashier remembers your name. Every season arrives exactly when you expect it to, and life moves forward quietly, without surprises. I worked as a high school guidance counselor. Every weekday, teenagers sat across from me in a small office painted in calming beige tones. They talked about anxiety, heartbreak, fear of the future, identity confusion, and loneliness. I listened. I nodded. I offered reassurance. I helped them put words to feelings they didn't yet know how to name. What none of them knew was that after they left my office, after the door closed behind them, I often sat alone for a few extra minutes, staring at nothing because I couldn't do the same for myself. From the outside, my life looked stable, comfortable, even enviable. I had a respectable career, a warm, quiet home, a husband I had been married to for 9 years. No public arguments, no scandals, no explosive fights, no dramatic social media posts. People used to say it all the time. "You're lucky, Lucy. You have such a peaceful marriage." And they were right. But peace and happiness are not the same thing. That my husband's name is Mark Anderson. Mark worked in technology, mostly from home. He was intelligent, reliable, and deeply reserved. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unkind. He simply lived inside himself. Mark believed silence prevented conflict. He thought that if problems weren't spoken out loud, they would eventually dissolve on their own. If something wasn't discussed, then it wasn't real. For a long time, I believed that too. Our marriage didn't collapse in a single moment. There was no betrayal, no shouting, no sudden heartbreak. What happened was quieter and somehow more painful. We drifted, slowly, silently. We still ate dinner together at the same table, still shared the same couch, still slept in the same bed, but our conversations grew shorter. Laughter faded. Eye contact disappeared. At night, we lay facing opposite walls, our backs sometimes touching, our minds miles apart. There was no intimacy, just routine, and routine, when left unchecked, can suffocate love without making a sound. The hardest part was not knowing when it started. Loneliness doesn't announce itself. It creeps in when no one asks how your day really was, when your thoughts stay trapped inside your head, when being together no longer feels like connection. Some nights I stared at the ceiling and wondered, is this just what marriage becomes? Is passion supposed to fade into silence? I told myself this was normal, that long marriages naturally settle into quiet routines, but deep down I felt invisible. What I didn't know then was that Mark felt the distance too. Mark noticed my forced smiles, my quiet sadness, the way I stopped talking about my day, but instead of addressing it, he withdrew further. Two people standing on opposite sides of the same problem, both afraid to name it, until one ordinary evening changed everything. I was folding laundry in the living room. The television was on, but neither of us was watching it. Mark walked in and sat beside me on the couch. No phone, no laptop, no distractions. Just silence. When I looked at him, I saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Vulnerability. "Lucy," he said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot." My hands froze mid-fold. "About what?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "About us." That single word felt heavier than it should have. "I know you're unhappy," he continued, "and I know I haven't been able to reach you like I used to." For a moment, I couldn't respond. This was the first time he had ever said it out loud. "You're right," I finally admitted. "I don't know when it happened, but something between us is missing." What he said next shocked me. "I want to try something different." I frowned. "Different how?" He hesitated. "I've been reading about how some couples explore understanding, not cheating, not betrayal, just clarity." My heart started pounding. "Say it clearly," I said. He looked down. "I want you to meet someone, just once, someone I choose." My chest tightened. "I'll be there," he added quickly. "Not involved, just present. I want to understand what you're missing." At first, I laughed. Then I cried. It sounded insane, painful, wrong. But beneath my anger was something far more dangerous. Hope. Hope that this might finally force honesty. That A week passed. I thought Mark would change his mind. He didn't. One evening, he handed me a small piece of paper, a name, a time. "His name is Ethan," he said softly. "He understands the boundaries." I didn't know whether to scream or walk out. Instead, I nodded. Something inside me needed the truth, no matter how painful. The cafe was quiet, dimly, safe. Ethan was nothing extraordinary at first glance. Calm, attentive, present. And that was the problem. He asked questions. He listened. He didn't interrupt. For the first time in years, I felt heard. I laughed more in that 1 hour than I had in months, and when I left, guilt followed me home. That night, I didn't feel excitement. I felt grief, because the ache wasn't about Ethan. It was about what I had been missing in my own marriage. The next morning, I sat across from Mark at the kitchen table. "I don't want this again," I said. He nodded. "I don't either." And for the first time in years, we talked. Not politely, not carefully, honestly. We talked about fear, about avoidance, about how silence had felt safer than vulnerability. And slowly, painfully, we began again. This story isn't about permission. It's about emotional neglect. It's about how love doesn't die in loud explosions. It fades in quiet rooms. If you've ever felt lonely beside someone you love, this story is for you. And if you're still watching, subscribe, because the hardest truths are the ones we need to hear the most.